Okay, I want you to picture this. You're standing right there at the pharmacy counter. The pharmacist comes over and places two seemingly identical boxes of medicine right in front of you. Now, they're designed to treat the exact same condition, and they have to be the exact same strict quality standards. But there is one glaring difference between these two boxes sitting there. And spoiler alert, it has absolutely nothing to do with science. Right, so on one side, you've got the familiar, heavily advertised brand name medication ringing up at, let's say, $50. And then on the other side, the generic version for just $10. Instantly, our brains just kind of glitch, right? We try to make sense of this massive gap because we are completely conditioned to believe that in life you get what you pay for. So naturally, the very first question that pops into your head, and honestly every consumer's head, is just, what is the catch? Like, is the cheaper medicine somehow lower quality? Is the expensive one going to work better or faster? Are generic medicines just, cheap, unregulated knockoffs cooked up in some basement? And if they really are essentially the exact same thing, why on earth does the brand name cost so much more? Well, that's exactly what we're doing in this explainer today. We are going behind the pharmacy counter to unpack the truth. Section 1. What makes a generic? Unpacking the active ingredients. So here's how it works. When a pharmaceutical company first develops a brand new medicine, they usually get these patents or exclusivities for a set period of time. But eventually, those protections expire, and that's when generic competitors can jump into the market. Now, a lot of people think an FDA-approved generic is just a manufacturer throwing together a cheaper, watered-down version of the drug. But that's absolutely not true. If the brand name medicine contains exactly 100 milligrams of active ingredient X, guess what? The approved generic has to contain exactly 100 milligrams of active ingredient X. It legally must have the exact same active ingredient, the exact same strength, the same dosage form, and the exact same route of administration. No exceptions. And this actually brings us to a slightly intimidating scientific word. Bioequivalence. I know, it sounds super technical, but don't let it scare you off. It's actually incredibly reassuring for us as patients. See, when you take a medicine, it has to physically get into your body, right? The active ingredient needs to become available in your bloodstream. To even get FDA approval, the generic manufacturer has to prove that their drug behaves in the human body sufficiently similarly to the original reference drug. Scientists literally measure how fast the drug gets to work and how much of it successfully enters your system. Okay, let's dive into this classroom board. If we line up the facts side by side, it becomes super clear. The active ingredient, matched. The FDA quality standards, matched. Bioequivalence, tested and matched. So we can totally put to bed the myth that generics are unregulated. They absolutely are regulated. However, there are two specific areas where they do diverge: the inactive ingredients and the physical appearance.
Section 2. Looks can be deceiving. Inactive ingredients and appearance.
Look, I totally get it if you still have some lingering doubts. You get home, you open the pill bottle, and wait a second, your usual brand name pill was this little round blue thing with a specific logo on it. But the generic you just picked up is white, it's oval, and it has a totally different stamp on it. It's perfectly natural for your brain to go, uh-oh, these are obviously completely different medicines. But they really aren't. While the active ingredient has to be a perfect match, manufacturers are completely legally allowed to use different colors, different shapes, and different markings. The crucial thing to understand here is why they look different in the first place, and that all comes down to inactive ingredients. You see, imidazole is a lot more than just its active therapeutic part. You need other stuff, inactive ingredients, to physically hold the tablet together, to preserve it on the shelf, to give it a certain texture, control what it looks like, and honestly, just to help it dissolve right once you swallow it. These inactive ingredients absolutely can and do vary between the brand and the generic, but, and this is absolutely crucial, the FDA strictly ensures that these differences do not mess with the drug's core performance or its safety. And this brilliantly illustrates the point. Think about it kind of like bottled water. You could grab two totally different bottles of water from the store. They have completely different paper labels. Maybe one plastic bottle is shaped weird, one has a blue cap, the other has a white cap, but inside, it's just water. And it meets the exact same strict health and safety standards. We really have to train ourselves to separate the physical look of the pill from its actual medical substance. Section 3, the economics of medicine. Following the money. Okay, so if the science is practically identical and the quality standards are the same, why in the world is there such a massive price gap? Well, to answer that, we've got to zoom out and look at the macroeconomics of the whole pharmaceutical industry. Let's stack up some of those hidden upfront costs. When a company creates a brand new drug from scratch, they are taking on an enormous financial risk. We're talking years of research and development. They have to fund massive, incredibly expensive clinical trials. They have to navigate all the initial regulatory hurdles. And then, on top of all that, they spend a literal fortune on marketing, sales teams, and building up brand recognition. So that exclusive patent window they get, that is their chance to recover all those original massive investments. But here's the thing. When a generic manufacturer finally enters the market years later, they aren't starting from scratch. Not at all. They don't have to repeat that entire exhausting initial research phase or the original clinical trials. Their costs are way more focused. They just have to handle manufacturing, prove regulatory equivalence, and then distribute the product. Because their initial development costs are a mere fraction of the brand's, they can afford to charge significantly less. But honestly, there's another huge factor at play here. So imagine just one company holds the patent. They're selling a medicine with virtually zero competition, meaning they basically get to set whatever price they want. But then, the patent drops. Suddenly, let's say 5 different companies get approval to sell the generic version. Literally overnight, pharmacies and insurance companies have multiple suppliers fighting for their business. It is this intense market competition, not some scary drop in medical quality, that violently pushes those prices down at the pharmacy counter. Now, we also have to talk about insurance, because what you personally pay out of pocket is heavily dictated by your specific plan. There's a term you really need to know here: formulary. A formulary is basically just your health plan's master list of covered prescription drugs, along with the specific rules for how they cover them. Insurers intentionally design these formularies in tiers to heavily encourage patients to use the lower-cost, FDA-approved generic options. That's why your copay for the generic might be $10, while the preferred brand name stays way up at $50. And man, this just perfectly exposes one of the most wildly complex realities of the US healthcare system. The price the drug manufacturer actually charges, that doesn't equal the price the pharmacy receives, which does not equal what your insurance counts toward the claim, which for sure does not equal your personal copay. The specific dollar amount you see at the register is often completely detached from the actual market price of the drug itself. It's kind of wild when you think about it. Section 4. Making the right choice. Navigating your options with your doctor. Now, there are always some exceptions, right? Like with complex biologic medicines, often called biosimilars, which definitely require some specific, nuanced conversations with your doctor. But for your standard, everyday medications, the core takeaway of this explainer is this: cheap doesn't automatically mean bad, and expensive doesn't automatically mean better. You are totally empowered to look right past that price tag. An FDA-approved generic is legally required to give you the exact same clinical benefit as its brand name counterparts. Having a preference for a brand name is totally fine, but medical superiority and a high price tag, yeah, they are not the same thing. So here's what I want you to do. The very next time you're standing at the pharmacy and you see that massive price gap, I want you to completely flip the script. Don't look at it and ask, wow, why is the generic so cheap? Instead, ask yourself, why was the original brand so expensive? And what happens to the market once competitors finally arrive? Because I promise you, once you understand the actual science, the patents, the raw competition, and the real economics of healthcare, you will literally never look at a price tag on a medicine bottle the same way again.